You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV from Toronto, Ontario. This is Samia Sayed. Welcome to the show. Coming up later is an interview with Harry PEDWELL from the Peel Crime Stoppers regarding a rampage this week that left 2 dead and 3 injured. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Appointment of Alberta human rights head rescinded. Global Islamic Fund for Refugees to launch next week. Far-right extremism on the rise in Canada. Court condemns France over Syria repatriation refusals. And now the details. Alberta's Justice Minister Tylo Shandro confirmed yesterday in an email to media that Alberta's cabinet has rescinded the appointment of Colin May, the head of the Human Rights Commission. The cabinet did not provide the reason for the decision. Shandro publicly asked May to resign earlier this week after meeting him to discuss a letter demanding May's removal. The letter from the National Council of Canadian Muslims, signed by 28 Muslim organizations in Alberta, alleged that May did not make any attempt to meet with Muslim leaders so that he can better understand Islam. The groups are concerned with alleged Islamophobic comments in a 2009 book review. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the Islamic Solidarity Fund for Development, and the Islamic Development Bank are launching the Global Islamic Fund for Refugees on September 22nd in New York. Donors can contribute to a Waqf or Islamic endowment stream or a non-Waqf one. The Global Islamic Fund for Refugees will invest these donations based on Islamic principles. The proceeds will be donated to UNHCR projects. The Islamic Development Bank and UNHCR have each donated $50 million as seed money. The UNHCR says 100 million people across the world have been forced to flee their homes due to conflict or climate change. Evan Balgord, the executive director of the Canadian AntiHate Network, says that the Freedom Convoy successfully pulled vaccine-hesitant people into their movement, exposing them to racist views. At an Ottawa conference called Hate Among Us, Balgord says that although some movement leaders are facing legal consequences, the ideology of the movement is going mainstream. Balgord says his organization traced around 20,000 white supremacists in Canada 6 years ago, reports a media source. He says the number has risen to 10 to 15% of Canadians with extreme far-right views. These include anti-government and anti-science rhetoric and racist and homophobic perspectives. The European Court of Human Rights condemned France on Wednesday for refusing to repatriate 2 of its female citizens being held in Syria after joining their Islamist extremist partners. The court said that the French authorities should promptly re-examine the request by the woman's parents to let them return home. However, it did not issue a blanket ruling that all French citizens held in Kurdish-run camps in Syria since the fall of the Islamic State group should be repatriated. Repatriations are hugely controversial in France, which has seen a wave of terror attacks since 2015. And that's it for the news. Now, in the last week, a horrible tragedy shook the Greater Toronto area. 38-year-old Shakil Ashraf and Constable Andrew Hong were both killed, with more left injured. The suspect's rampage went on across multiple cities before he was shot in an altercation with the police in Hamilton. Harry PEDWELL from the Peel Crime Stoppers is joining us now to tell us more. Welcome to the show, Harry, and it's a pleasure to have you on today.
It's a pleasure to be on. Thank you very much.
Harry, tell us more about the incident. What details have come to light since it happened on Monday?
Well, I think it's ongoing police investigation that's going on. It appears at this time that it was a random shooting. Someone decided that they wanted to commit a crime, and they did. And it's unfortunate. Constable Andrew Hung appears to have been just caught at the wrong place at the wrong time. Before this incident occurred.
Mm-hmm. And what about Shakil Ashraf? What was his role in everything that he ended up being shot at the end?
Yeah, it's not quite clear at this time. Again, this under investigation by the police, so I'm sure more details will be coming in.
Mhm. Then what is the role of Peel Crime Stoppers in this investigation?
Well, I think the key thing is that with Peel Crime Stoppers is one of a couple of key organizations that help Peel Regional Police and the OPP within Peel Region. The main thing for us is if people have information related to the incident, that they ensure that they report it. And if they want to report it confidentially, they can use Peel Crime Stoppers to report it on.
Hmm. And how specifically should they contact Peel Crime Stoppers to submit any information?
They can go to our website, or they can use what's called the P3 app that they can download. And they can provide information via those two.
Hmm. Now, something I've noticed for tips in particular is that people seem to know things, but they don't know if it's relevant. How should someone know that this is something that important that I have to report?
Yeah, I think it's always difficult for people to understand whether what information they have is important or not. It could be. At this point, I quite honestly would say that if anybody has anything related to it, please report it, no matter how small it is, and that let the police then have that information that they can then go out and do the investigation. And little pieces can add to the work that they're doing.
Hmm. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the emergency alert that was sent out on Monday. There was quite some backlash because the alert itself had very little useful or even actionable information. What is your take on this?
Yeah, it's always tricky. I think the issue that the police force will run into is what do they have to tell the public and when to ensure that it's timely. I think for in this case, it was very important for them to ensure that people were aware that there was an active shooting incident that occurred. There's potential danger for citizens on the street, and that there was a particular vehicle description that they wanted to find that vehicle and find that suspect. So it's sort of, again, it's weighing, not scaring people, but also informing people so they can help the police do their job.
Mhm. If an emergency alert like the one on Monday does come in, what do you suggest people should do?
Well, typically when we've seen these, I think most people have seen the sort of the amber alerts that have come through. In this case, with an active shooter going on in the area, the first thing to do is if you don't need to go somewhere, please don't. And if you do, just be conscious of the details that have been provided by the police. You know, the area it's in, the description of any vehicles in the incident, and determine whether you really need to go where you want to go.
Mm. Now, I did mention before that there were 2 people who died after this incident. How are people grieving the death of Mr. Ashraf and Constable Honk?
The Well, I think any death is regrettable. In the case of Constable Hong, he's a member of the Toronto Police Services who was doing work with teaching at some of the Peel officers. My understanding, certainly, it was hard hit for Peel Regional. They've lost one of their own in another police officer, and certainly hard hit for the Toronto Police Service, and obviously the family and relatives of him. For the Mr. Ashraf, I think it's probably just a shock for his family, and obviously they're grieving and trying to figure out why such a senseless act occurred.
Mm-hmm. I want to take a little bit of a broader approach. I mean, it feels almost like it's every day where we open up the news and we see that there's another shooting or there's some more people in the hospital because of a shooting, random or targeted. How often do crimes like this really happen?
Well, I think you're right to start off with. I think we've had a lot in the last couple of weeks, particularly you hear a lot with Peel being right beside Toronto. You do hear a lot about gun violence occurring in Toronto, and obviously the spill-off that, Peel being right next door, that it could occur here as well. From my understanding, the majority of it is targeted. Very, very little of it is random. So the average resident doesn't have too much to worry about. But I also had an event the other day with the chief of police for Peel, And he reiterated the fact that Peel is actually one of the safest places to live in major cities in Canada. And although there has been a lot of things in the news lately, it's important to remember that we hear a lot of the bad things. We don't hear a lot of the good things, and that Peel is a very safe area to live in.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know you said that most of these attacks are targeted, so people don't have to be too worried. But what are some of the precautions people can take just to be extra cautious?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to common sense. A lot of it with the targeted things that go on, a lot of it is obviously crime related. So just be careful of where you're going. Be conscious of those who you're interacting with to ensure that those sort of activities aren't going on around them, and if they are, you shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for your time, Harry. It was a pleasure having you on the show today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
You are watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. That's it from our Toronto studios tonight. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more Canadian Muslim content. Stay safe, and until next time.